Jack Morrison's fist slammed through the driver's side window glass, exploding across his knuckles like shattered ice. Blood ran down his arm, but he didn't feel it. Inside that crumpled car, a woman was dyeing her badge half hidden under a coat soaked dark red, her breath coming in short, broken gasps. "Stay with me," Jack roared, dragging her out into the freezing Detroit night. Then her hand shot up, fingers locking around his wrist with the strength of the dying. Her lips moved. 4 words froze him solid. "Don't call the police." Before we go further, drop a comment telling me what city you're watching from tonight, so I know how far this story has traveled. And if you believe one good man can still change everything, hit that subscribe button and stay with me until the very end. The clock on Jack Morrison's dashboard read 11:47 p.m., and the heater in his old Ford pickup had given up somewhere around the I-94 exit. He blew into his cupped hands, gripped the steering wheel, and forced his eyes to stay open. 14 hours at the shop. 14 hours of busted transmissions and customers who wanted miracles for the price of a sandwich. His back ached. His shoulder, the one he'd torn 3 years ago lifting an engine block alone because he couldn't afford a second mechanic, was throbbing again. "Just get home, old man," he muttered to himself. "Just get home." At 39, Jack didn't feel old. He felt used. There was a difference. Old men got to sit. Used men kept walking until something broke for good. His phone buzzed in the cup holder. He glanced down. A text from his daughter, Lily. "Daddy, I waited up. Mrs. Henderson made spaghetti. I saved you some. Drive safe. Love you." Jack's throat tightened. He thumbed back a quick reply at a red light. "On my way, baby girl. 5 more minutes. Love you too." 5 years. It had been 5 years since Rebecca walked out the front door with a suitcase and a man named Trevor, who sold real estate and wore loafers without socks. 5 years of being mother and father to an 8-year-old girl who deserved 1,000 times better than a tired mechanic with grease under his fingernails. But Lily never complained. Not once. That was the thing that gutted him most. The light turned green. Jack pressed the gas, and the truck rumbled forward through empty streets lined with old brick warehouses and shuttered storefronts. This stretch of Detroit didn't sleep, it just held its breath, waiting for morning. He took the shortcut he always took. Past the abandoned bottling plant. Across the railroad tracks. Down Wexler Road where the streetlights had been busted for years, and nobody from the city ever came to fix them. That's when he saw it. Yesho. A flicker of something off the road. Twisted metal catching the edge of his headlights. A sedan, a dark blue sedan, slammed nose first into the steel guardrail at the bottom of the embankment, the front end folded up like an accordion. Jack eased off the gas. His foot hovered between the brake and the accelerator. "Keep driving," a voice in his head whispered. "Lily's waiting. Spaghetti's getting cold. Some other driver will see it, some cop on patrol. It's not your job, Jack. Not your problem." He coasted past the wreck. Maybe 50 feet. Maybe 60. Then he stopped. He sat there with the engine idling, his breath fogging up the windshield, his hands clenched on the wheel. "God damn it," he whispered. He threw the truck into reverse. The driver's side door wouldn't open. Jack tried twice, yanking with both hands, his work boots slipping in the gravel. The metal was crumpled inward, jammed against the frame. He pressed his face to the window. What he saw made his stomach drop. A woman. Mid-30s maybe. Dark hair plastered to her forehead with sweat and blood. Her head was slumped against the steering wheel, and the airbag had deployed and deflated, hanging like a dead jellyfish across her lap. There was blood, too much blood, pooling in the seat well around her boots. Her eyes were closed. "Hey." Jack pounded the window with the flat of his palm. "Hey, lady, can you hear me, lady?" Nothing. He cupped his hands and tried to see her chest. For one long, terrible second, he wasn't sure she was breathing. Then a tiny rise. A shallow, broken inhale. Okay, okay. Jack pulled his phone out, started to dial 911. His thumb hit the 9. Then he stopped. Something was wrong. It wasn't the wreck. It wasn't even the blood. It was the position of the car. The skid marks on the road behind it weren't long, weren't smooth. They were short and violent, like the sedan had been shoved off the road. And there on the passenger side panel, a long, deep gouge of dark paint, like another vehicle had clipped it hard at high speed. This wasn't an accident. Jack pocketed the phone. "Hold on, ma'am, I'm coming, hold on." He ran back to his truck, threw open the toolbox in the bed and grabbed the heaviest thing in there, a steel pry bar 2.5 feet long, the same one he used to break, stuck lug nuts loose on rusted-out frames. He sprinted back to the car. "Lady, I gotta break the glass. Cover your face if you can hear me." She didn't move. Jack swung. The first hit cracked the window in a spider web pattern. The second shattered it. Glass sprayed across her arm and shoulder, and Jack immediately reached in, fumbling for the door lock, the door handle, anything. His knuckle tore on a jagged edge. He didn't notice. The door groaned, then popped open. I've got you, ma'am. Stay with me." He leaned in. The smell hit him first copper and gasoline. He fumbled for the seatbelt release, pressed it hard. The buckle wouldn't give. He pressed again, swearing under his breath, then ripped his folding knife out of his back pocket and sawed through the strap with 3 rough strokes. That's when his hand brushed against something hard under her jacket. Leather, a holster, a gun. And as he pulled her jacket aside to check her wound, he saw it. A gold shield, pinned to the inner lining. Detroit Police Department. Detective. Jack froze. Oh, son of a... He'd just stepped into something. He didn't know what yet. But every instinct in his body, every gut feeling honed by years of dealing with hard men in a hard city, was screaming that this was bad. This was very, very bad. He shoved the thought aside. Save her first. Figure it out later. He slid one arm under her knees, the other under her shoulders. She was lighter than he expected. Maybe a $130 soaking wet, but he was running on fumes and adrenaline, and his lower back protested as he straightened up. He carried her one shaky step at a time up the embankment toward his truck. Stay with me, detective. Come on, stay with me. He laid her across the bench seat in the cab, propped her head up with his folded jacket, and reached for his phone again. He was about to dial when... Her hand shot up, cold slick with blood grabbing his wrist, hard. Jack jerked back in shock. Her eyes were open. Bloodshot, half rolled back, but open, and focused on him with the laser-sharp clarity of someone who knew exactly what they were doing. Her lips moved. Don't... Jack leaned in. Ma'am, I got a call. Don't call the police. Jack's blood went cold. What? She gripped tighter, knuckles white, pulling him down toward her. They did this! A wet cough, blood at the corner of her mouth. They'll finish it. Don't, please. Then her eyes rolled back, and her hand fell limp against the seat. Jack stood there in the freezing dark, the wind cutting through his flannel shirt, his phone glowing in his hand with the half-dialed numbers on the screen. 9-1. He didn't press the second one. His hand was trembling. Jesus Christ, he whispered. Jesus Christ, lady, what did you get me into? He stood there for a full 10 seconds, maybe 15. The whole world narrowed down to that little glowing screen in his hand, and the woman bleeding out on his front seat. Every part of his brain that was rational, the part that paid bills on time, the part that read his daughter bedtime stories, the part that had spent the last 5 years trying to be a good and ordinary man. That part was screaming at him. Call right now. Call and let the professionals handle this. You're a mechanic, Jack. You fix transmissions. You don't get involved in this kind of thing." But there was another voice, quieter, older. The voice of the man his father had been before the cancer took him. A welder out of Hamtramck who'd raised 3 boys on overtime and gospel music, and who'd told Jack over and over until Jack could recite it in his sleep. "When somebody asks you for help, son, and they're looking you in the eye, you don't turn away. Don't ever turn away. That's the line between a man and an animal." Jack looked at the woman. Her chest was still rising, barely. She'd looked him in the eye, and she'd asked. He shoved the phone in his pocket. "All right, detective." He climbed into the driver's seat, slammed the door, fired up the engine. "All right, we're gonna do this the dumb way." He pulled the truck out onto the road and pointed it toward home. He drove fast. Not reckless. Jack Morrison didn't know how to be reckless behind a wheel, but fast. He blew through 2 yellow lights and 1 stop sign, his eyes flicking constantly to the rearview mirror, looking for headlights that didn't belong. There were none. For now. He glanced over at her. Her face was paler than it had been 5 minutes ago. Her breath was coming shorter, more shallow. The blood from her side was soaking into his jacket beneath her. "Stay with me, ma'am. What's your name? Can you hear me? Hey, hey." He shook her shoulder. "What's your name?" A weak murmur, eyes flickering. "Sarah?" "Sarah. Good. Sarah, my name's Jack. Jack Morrison. I'm going to take you to my house, you understand me. My house, not a hospital, because that's what you said, right? Don't call. So I'm not calling. But Sarah, you got to stay awake. You hear me? Stay awake." "Mitchell?" "Sarah Mitchell. Got it. Sarah Mitchell, you stay with me." He hit a pothole, and she groaned. Jack winced. Sorry. I'm sorry." He turned onto his street, a row of small post-war houses, most of them with peeling paint and patched-up roofs, his own house sitting at the end of the cul-de-sac with the porch light burning yellow in the dark. The sight of that porch light usually filled him with relief. Tonight, it filled him with dread. Lily was inside. His 10-year-old daughter was inside that house. And he was about to bring a bleeding cop and possibly a whole world of trouble right through the front door. He pulled into the gravel driveway, cut the engine, and sat there for a moment, breathing hard. "Okay, Jack," he told himself. "Okay, you can do this. You've patched up worse. Remember Iraq. Remember Hassan." He hadn't thought about Hassan in years. The Iraqi interpreter who'd taken shrapnel to the gut outside Fallujah and bled out in the back of a Humvee, while Jack, 23 years old, 2 months out of medic training, had pressed his hands into the wound and prayed in 2 languages. Hassan had died. Jack didn't talk about that one. He climbed out of the truck, cracked his knuckles, cracked his neck, walked around to the passenger side and gathered Sarah Mitchell up in his arms one more time. "Come on, detective. Almost there." Mrs. Henderson, the 72-year-old neighbor who watched Lily on the late shifts, was asleep on the couch in front of the muted television. Lily was curled up in the armchair across from her, a half-eaten plate of spaghetti on the side table. A paperback novel, Charlotte's Web, for the 3rd time that month, open on her chest. Jack froze in the doorway, Sarah in his arms. "Lily." His daughter's eyes opened. "Lily." She looked at her father, then at the woman in his arms, then at the blood on his shirt, his hands, his jeans, his neck where the shattered glass had cut him. She didn't scream. She didn't cry. She just sat up very, very slowly, like she'd been waiting her entire short life to see her father carry someone in like this, and didn't want to make a wrong move. "Daddy," she whispered. "Is she alive?" "Yeah, baby. Yeah, she's alive. But I need your help. Okay, I need you to be real brave right now." Lily nodded. Her face was pale, but her hands were steady. That was the part that broke him a little, the way her hands were steady. "I need you to wake up Mrs. Henderson. Real gentle. Tell her there's been an accident, and we need her to go home and not call anybody. Not anybody. Can you do that?" "Yes, Daddy." "Then I need you to bring me the big first aid kit from the garage, the green one on the second shelf, and the bottle of brown liquid in the cabinet, the one I told you never to touch. Tonight you can touch it. Bring it. And clean towels, as many as you can carry." Lily slid out of the armchair like a little ghost. She walked to Mrs. Henderson, shook her shoulder gently. The old woman, startled awake, saw the bleeding woman, and her hand flew to her mouth. "Jack, sweet Jesus, what—" "Mrs. Henderson." Jack's voice was low and urgent. "I need you to trust me, right now. I'll explain when I can. But you need to go home, lock your door, and do not call anybody. Not police. Not 911. Nobody. I'm begging you." Mrs. Henderson stared at him. 40 years she'd known the Morrison family. She'd watched Jack grow up. She'd been at his mother's funeral. She'd sat at her kitchen window and watched Rebecca leave with Trevor and the suitcase and never once said a word that wasn't kind. She looked at Jack. She looked at the woman. "Lord have mercy," she whispered. Then she nodded. "I'll go home. I won't call. But Jackson, what in the world have you—" "I don't know, ma'am. I don't know yet. Please, just go." She grabbed her coat and her purse, and she left. Lily came back, her small arms full of the first aid kit and 3 white towels. Jack carried Sarah Mitchell to the kitchen and laid her on the kitchen table. He worked fast. Jack's hands didn't shake when he worked. They never had. Engines, transmissions, brakes, bullet wounds. When his hands were busy, his brain went quiet. It was the only time it did. He cut Sarah's blood-soaked shirt away with kitchen shears. There were 2 wounds. One was a long, deep gash along her ribs, glass probably from the wreck. The other was darker, smaller, rounder, higher up near the collarbone. A bullet hole. Jack's stomach dropped. "You weren't just run off the road, were you, detective?" he muttered. Lily stood beside the table holding the bottle of bourbon and a stack of gauze, her eyes huge. "Daddy," she whispered. "Is that a—" "Yes, baby. Don't look at it. Look at her face. Just talk to her. Okay? Tell her she's going to be all right. Tell her your name. People can hear even when they're like this. Talk to her." Lily nodded. "My name's Lily Morrison," she said softly to the unconscious woman. "I'm 10. My daddy's the best mechanic in Detroit. He's gonna fix you. He fixes everything." Jack had to bite the inside of his cheek hard to keep his eyes clear. He poured bourbon over the wound. Sarah jerked, groaned, but didn't wake. Good. He cleaned, packed, applied pressure. The bullet had gone clean through exit wound, just behind the shoulder. Lucky, or rather lucky, that whoever shot her hadn't been a better shot. He stitched the gash on her ribs with fishing line and a sewing needle he'd sterilized in the bourbon. 12 stitches. Crooked, ugly, but they'd hold. He bandaged her up, started an IV from a bag of saline he kept in the kit, left over from the days when he'd been a combat medic and never quite gotten out of the habit of being prepared. 20 minutes later, Sarah Mitchell was breathing more steadily. She wasn't awake, but she was alive. Jack collapsed into a kitchen chair, wiped his face with a clean towel, and looked down at his hands. They were red to the wrists. Lily climbed into his lap without a word. She put her small arms around his neck. "Daddy." "Yeah, baby." "Are we in trouble?" Jack looked at the unconscious detective on his kitchen table. He looked at the front door double-locked. He looked at the windows where the yellow porch light cut shapes into the dark. He thought about her words. They did this. He thought about that gold shield, Detroit Police Department. He thought about the dark paint scrape on the side of her car, the kind of paint you only got from a vehicle ramming you off the road on purpose. He held his daughter tight against his chest. "Yeah, baby," he whispered. "I think we might be." It was 1:14 in the morning when Sarah Mitchell finally opened her eyes. Jack was sitting in the chair beside the table, his shotgun across his lap, the old Remington 8.7. Oh, his father had given him on his 18th birthday. Lily asleep on the couch in the next room with the door closed, the kitchen lit only by the small lamp over the sink. Sarah's eyes flickered, found him, focused. She tried to sit up, hissed in pain, fell back. "Easy," Jack said quietly. "Easy, detective. You took a bullet, and about 100 stitches." She stared at him, confused, then sharper, then slowly afraid. "Where am I?" "My house. You told me not to call the police, so I didn't. But you owe me a damn good explanation, Detective Mitchell, and you owe it to me right now. Because I've got a 10-year-old daughter sleeping in the next room, and whatever you brought to my door, I need to know what it is." Sarah closed her eyes for a long moment. When she opened them again, there were tears in them. She didn't let them fall. She was the kind of woman who didn't let things fall. "My name is Detective Sarah Mitchell," she said, her voice rasping. "Detroit Police Internal Affairs. For the last 14 months, I've been building a corruption case against my own captain, Captain Raymond Harris. He runs a unit that does protection rackets for half the criminal organizations on the East Side. Drugs, trafficking, murder for hire. He's killed 3 witnesses that I know of. Probably more I don't." Jack didn't say anything. "Tonight I was meeting an informant, someone inside Harris's operation who agreed to testify. I had a flash drive from him with names, dates, account numbers enough to bring down 20 officers and the network that protects them. On my way back to my safe house, 2 unmarked cars boxed me in. They opened fire. I lost control. They thought they finished me." Whoa. Her hand drifted weakly to her front jacket pocket, the one Jack had cut away. He understood. He pulled the bloody jacket from where he'd folded it on the counter and dug through the pocket. His fingers closed around something small and hard. A black flash drive. He held it up. Sarah let out a long, shaking breath. "That's it," she whispered. "That's everything. If that gets out, Harris goes to prison for the rest of his life. If it doesn't..." She closed her eyes. "If it doesn't, he'll keep killing. And I'll be one of the names on the list." Jack stared at the flash drive in his palm. A piece of plastic the size of his thumb. That was all that stood between this woman, this complete stranger now bleeding on his kitchen table, and a man with the power to make people disappear. "Detective Mitchell," Jack said slowly. "I'm a mechanic. I fix carburetors. I'm not a hero. I'm not a cop. I'm a divorced single dad with a mortgage I can barely make, and a kid who needs me to not die before her 11th birthday. You picked the wrong house." Sarah looked at him. Really looked at him. The kind of look a detective gives when she's reading a man down to the bone. "No, Mr. Morrison," she said softly. "I didn't pick. You stopped. There's a difference." Jack closed his fingers around the flash drive. He thought about all the cars that must have driven past her wreck before he came along. 5, 10, 20. All those drivers who'd seen and kept going. He hadn't. He didn't know why. Maybe it was his father's voice. Maybe it was Hassan dead in the back of a Humvee in a country half a world away. Maybe it was the simple, stupid fact that Jack Morrison had never figured out how to drive past a person who needed him. Nay. He stood up, walked to the window, lifted the corner of the curtain. And out there, parked on the dark curb 3 houses down with its headlights off and its engine running. A black SUV. Sitting. Watching. Jack let the curtain fall. His jaw locked. He turned back to the woman on his table. "Detective," he said quietly, "I think they followed us." Sarah pushed herself up on her elbow, ignoring the spike of pain that ran through her ribs. Her face had gone the color of paper. "How many?" "1 vehicle. Black SUV. No plates I can see from here. Tinted windows. Engine running." "How long?" "I don't know. I just looked." She closed her eyes, calculating. When she opened them, the detective was back. The fear was gone. Or buried so deep Jack couldn't see it anymore. Mr. Morrison, I need you to listen to me very carefully. If that's Harris's people, they're not here to talk. They're here to confirm I'm dead. When they realize I'm not, they'll come in. They won't knock. Jack pulled back the action on the Remington. The metallic clack was loud in the small kitchen. Then they'll have a hell of a time getting through that door.
Deal?
No, 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 no. Sarah grabbed at the edge of the table to steady herself. You can't shoot it out with these guys. They're trained. They're armed. And if you fire on them, even in your own home, when the real police come, and they will come, there'll be questions you can't answer. Harris has people in every precinct in this city. By morning, you'll be the suspect. They'll take your daughter, Jack. Do you understand me? They'll take Lily. Jack lowered the shotgun. His hand was steady, but inside his chest, something cold was climbing up his throat. Then what? Then we don't fight them. We get gone. We get gone right now before they realize we know they're out there. Lady, I've got a 10-year-old asleep on that couch. I know. You don't know. You don't have kids. You don't know. Sarah looked at him with a steadiness that knocked the wind out of his anger. I had a sister, she said quietly. Younger. She was 7 when our father died. I raised her after that. She's the reason I became a cop. She's the reason I'm still a cop. And she's the reason Harris is going to prison, even if I have to drag him there with my last breath. She paused. So no, Mr. Morrison. I don't have a daughter. But don't tell me I don't know. Jack looked at her for a long moment. Then he set the shotgun down on the kitchen counter and walked to the living room. Lily, baby, wake up. His daughter stirred, blinked, sat up. Daddy. We gotta go, sweetheart. Where? On a trip, right now, just for a little bit. With the lady. Yeah, with the lady. Lily looked at her father. She didn't ask why. She didn't ask if it was dangerous. She didn't cry, didn't argue, didn't slow him down by even half a second. She just slid off the couch, grabbed her sneakers, and started lacing them up. Jack watched her for a half a heartbeat and felt something break open in his chest. He'd raised her right. God help him, he'd raised her too right. She shouldn't have to be this brave at 10 years old. Pack your backpack, baby. The blue one. 3 changes of clothes. Your toothbrush. Your bear. Don't forget your bear. Yes, Daddy. She disappeared down the hall. Jack went back to the kitchen. Sarah was already trying to swing her legs off the table. Jack caught her under the arm before she face-planted onto the linoleum. Easy, easy, detective. I can walk. You can't walk. I'll walk. Jack didn't argue. He'd known women like this before his mother mostly, and he knew you didn't argue with them, you just stayed close enough to catch them when they fell. Where are we going? Sarah asked. My brother's place, Ryan. He lives outside Toledo, 2 hours if I drive ugly. He's got a guest room above the garage. Nobody knows I have a brother. Even my ex-wife forgot. They'll trace your truck. Not taking the truck. Taking the Bronco in the garage. It's been sitting on blocks for 2 years. I keep the registration up, but it's under my dad's name. He's been dead since 2018. Won't ping on any system. Sarah blinked. You've thought about this before. Jack shook his head once. No, ma'am. I've just been a man for a long time who knows that the world doesn't always knock politely. He helped her into a clean flannel of his 3 sizes too big and a winter coat. He put a baseball cap on her head and pulled the brim down low. The bandages on her shoulder showed under the flannel collar, but in the dark, in a moving vehicle, nobody would catch it. Lily, he called. Coming, Daddy. She came down the hall with her blue backpack on her shoulders and a stuffed bear under one arm. The bear was named Mr. Buttons. Mr. Buttons had been her mother's originally. Rebecca had left him behind when she walked out the door. Lily had adopted him within the hour. Jack scooped her up, kissed her forehead. "You're my brave girl. You know that." "I know, Daddy. I love you more than anything in this world." "I know that too." He set her down, looked at Sarah, looked at the back door. Out the back, through the yard, over the fence into the Petersons' property. They moved out last spring. Bank still owns it. From there to the alley. The Broncos parked in the garage on the alley side. They won't see us leave. Sarah nodded. "Good plan." "It's not a plan, ma'am. It's a panic. Don't dress it up." He grabbed the shotgun, the flash drive, his wallet, the keys to the Bronco, and a thick envelope from the freezer with $1,100 cash that he kept for emergencies. Then he killed the lights in the kitchen, in the living room, in the hallway. The whole house went dark. He took Lily by the hand. He put his other hand under Sarah's good arm. "On three. We move quiet. We move fast. We don't stop for anything, even if you fall. Detective, we don't stop. I'll come back for you. You won't have to. On three. 1, 2, 3. The back door opened and shut so quietly, Jack himself barely heard it. The cold hit them like a slap. They moved through the yard in a tight cluster, Lily in the middle. The grass was crunchy with frost. Sarah's breath came out in sharp white bursts, and Jack could feel her shaking against his side, but she didn't slow down. Not once. The fence into the Petersons' yard was 4 feet of warped wood. Jack lifted Lily over first. Then he turned to Sarah. "You're gonna have to go over." "My ribs." "I know. This is going to hurt very, very much." "I know." She gritted her teeth and grabbed the top of the fence. Jack got under her good leg and lifted. She made a small choked sound, not a scream, not even close to a scream, but a sound that told Jack something inside her had probably torn open again. She landed on the other side, hard on her hands and knees in the dead grass. Lily was already there, helping her up. "It's okay, ma'am. My daddy's coming." "Bache." Jack vaulted the fence in one motion and was at Sarah's side. He half carried her across the dark Peterson yard, Lily right behind him, the shotgun across his back on its old leather sling. The alley was empty. The garage was where he'd left it, the side door unlocked because the lock had rusted out in 2019, and Jack had never gotten around to fixing it. They slipped inside. The Bronco sat on its blocks like an old sleeping dog. Faded green, original 1986 paint. A truck Jack had restored with his father in the year before the cancer took him, and which he had never been able to bring himself to sell. He yanked the cinder blocks out from under the wheels with 3 sharp pulls, got Sarah into the passenger seat, got Lily into the back, buckled her in, threw the shotgun on the floor of the back seat under a folded moving blanket. He climbed into the driver's seat, said a quick silent prayer, and turned the key. The Bronco coughed. Coughed again. Jack felt his entire chest seize. "Come on, old girl. Come on, come on, come on." The engine caught, roared to life, settled into a low, throaty rumble. Jack let out a breath he hadn't known he'd been holding. "Thank you, Daddy," he whispered, glancing up. He wasn't sure if he meant his own father or the one upstairs. "Micha." He hit the garage door opener, clipped to the visor. The old door rattled up. He backed out into the alley. Killed the lights, drove without them for the first 2 blocks. Only when he hit the main road 3 turns later did he flick the headlights on. In the rearview mirror, his street was dark and quiet. The black SUV was still parked where it had been 3 houses down from his own, watching the wrong house, waiting for nothing. For now. Jack drove. He drove through Detroit's empty late-night arteries, took the on-ramp to I-75, and pointed the old Bronco south toward Ohio. The needle climbed to 75 and he held it there. Not faster, not slower. The kind of speed a guy who didn't want to get pulled over kept. For the first 10 miles, nobody spoke. Lily's small voice broke the silence first. "Daddy." Yeah, baby. Is that lady going to be okay? Jack glanced at Sarah. Her head was leaned against the window, eyes closed, but he could tell from the way her jaw was clenched that she wasn't asleep. She was just hurting. Yeah, Lil, she's gonna be okay. Is she a good guy? Jack swallowed. Yeah, baby, she's a good guy. Are the people chasing her bad guys? Yes, baby, they are. Are you a good guy, Daddy? Jack's hands tightened on the steering wheel. I try to be, sweetheart. I try real hard. You are. Lily said it with absolute 10-year-old certainty. You're the best one. Sarah's eyes opened. She looked at Jack across the dim cab, and the look in her face was something Jack couldn't quite place. Something like pity. Something like envy. Something like the look a woman gives a man when she sees very clearly exactly what kind of man he is, and realizes she has come into his life and made it harder. Mr. Morrison, she said quietly. Jack. Jack. I am so sorry. Don't. I am so very, very sorry. I said don't, detective. Save it. We've got 2 hours of road and I need you to use them telling me everything. Every name. Every face. Every reason they want you dead. If I'm going to drive my daughter into the dark with a wounded cop in my passenger seat, I want to know exactly who's chasing us and why. Sarah took a long, shaky breath. Where do you want me to start? At the beginning. The beginning is 14 months ago. Then start there. Sarah closed her eyes for a moment. When she opened them, she stared straight ahead at the white lines of the highway and she began to talk. Captain Raymond Harris, 47 years old, 22 years on the force, 3 commendations, 2 medals of valor, married, 2 kids in private school, on paper the perfect cop. He runs Special Investigations Unit out of the 12th Precinct. SIU is supposed to handle long-term organized crime cases. Drugs, trafficking, the big stuff. They have wiretap authority. They have undercover budgets. They have warrant access most regular detectives never see. In other words, they have all the tools you'd need to run a criminal empire from inside the police department. And that's exactly what Harris has been doing. For at least 8 years. 8 years. That we know of. Probably longer. Jack let the highway hum under them for a beat. How does it work? He sells protection. A drug crew on the east side wants to operate without harassment. They pay Harris a monthly fee. He makes sure they don't get raided. If a competitor moves in his unit, takes the competitor down, clean legal by the book, and the original crew expands their territory. He doesn't take cocaine money in cash bags. He's smarter than that. He runs it through a string of shell companies, a car wash in Hamtramck, a bail bondsman in Highland Park, a construction outfit in Warren. The car wash alone laundered $4.2 million last year. Jesus. He's killed 3 confidential informants. We know because 2 of them died in custody heart attacks, both of them in their 30s, and the third one was found in the river with his hands tied. The official report said suicide. He couldn't have tied his own hands. How do you know all this? Sarah turned her head and looked at Jack. Because for 14 months, I've been working out of a 1-bedroom apartment in Ferndale, wearing a wire, half the time meeting informants in parking garages and pretending to be a regular violent crimes detective by day. I'm IA, Internal Affairs. I report to a deputy chief who reports directly to the FBI field office. There are exactly 4 people in the city who know I exist as an investigator, and 2 of them are federal. And 1 of them tipped off Harris. Sarah's jaw tightened. Somebody did. I don't know which one, but yes, somebody did. Tonight. Jack glanced at her, then back at the road. What's on the drive? Bank records, encrypted communications between Harris and his lieutenants. A spreadsheet, an actual spreadsheet of the monthly payments from each crew, broken out by date amount and the officer who picked it up. Photographs of the 3rd informant taken before he was killed. Audio of Harris ordering a hit. Names of every officer in his unit who's on the take. 23 officers, Jack. 23. And the FBI doesn't have any of this? They have pieces, not the whole thing. The whole thing is on this drive and only this drive. My informant burned the originals after he gave it to me. He was supposed to fly out tonight. Witness protection. He's the reason Harris finally moved on me, because he knew if Marcus made it out of the city, the case would be unstoppable. Is Marcus on a plane? Sarah was silent for a long moment. Marcus didn't make his flight. Jack didn't ask what that meant. He didn't have to. So why are we going to a journalist, he said, and not the FBI? Because the FBI plays by procedure. They'll need to verify everything on the drive. That'll take days, weeks, and in those weeks, Harris will know. He'll burn every paper trail. He'll kill every loose end. He'll have me dead before they finish their first warrant. And the leak in my own department means I can't even trust the deputy chief who's been running me. Maybe he's clean, maybe he's not. Tonight told me I can't tell the difference. Sarah looked straight at him. But a journalist with a copy of this drive, she publishes. She publishes within 48 hours. The story breaks at 6 a.m. on a Monday morning, and by lunchtime, every cable news network in America is running it. That's how you make sure the FBI has to act. That's how you make sure Harris can't bury it. You don't fight a man like Harris in court first. You fight him in public, then in court. Jack nodded slowly. Who's the journalist? Her name is Diane Castellanos. She's an independent investigative reporter. She used to work at the Detroit News until she got fired for refusing to bury a story about the mayor's nephew. She publishes on her own site now, subscriber funded. She's incorruptible because she's broke, and she likes it that way. I trust her with this drive more than I trust the United States government. Where is she? Cleveland. Jack laughed, not a happy laugh, a stunned one. Cleveland. It's 2 hours past Toledo. I know where Cleveland is, detective. I'm sorry, Jack. Stop apologizing. The Bronco rolled on through the dark. Lily had fallen asleep in the back seat, her head lolling against the door, Mr. Buttons wedged between her cheek and the window. Jack watched her in the rearview mirror and felt something in him settle and harden at the same time. The way a man feels when he's finally accepted that the fight is here and he's not going to be able to walk around it. Detective? Yes, I'm going to take you to Cleveland. I'm going to get you to your journalist. And then I'm going to take my daughter, and I'm going to disappear for a couple of weeks until this story breaks and your captain is in handcuffs. You hear me? Yes. But I want you to understand something. If at any point you put my little girl in front of yourself, in front of your case, in front of your evidence, if she gets so much as a scratch on her because of you, I will leave you on the side of the road. I don't care how hurt you are. I don't care about your evidence. I don't care about Captain Harris. That child is the one thing in this world that is mine, and she is the line. Are we clear? Sarah looked at him for a long moment. Yes, Jack, we are clear. Good. They drove in silence for another few miles. The exits ticked past Monroe, Luna Pier, Toledo, coming up in another 40 minutes. Then Sarah's eyes moved to the side mirror. She didn't say anything at first, just watched. Jack. What? There's a vehicle behind us, about 400 yards back. Same speed we are, same lane. It's been there for the last 6 exits. Jack's eyes went to the mirror. A pair of headlights, steady, far enough back to look casual, close enough to keep track. Could be a trucker. It's not a trucker. The lights are too low to the ground. It's an SUV. Jack tightened his grip on the wheel. Okay, could be coincidence. Yes, it could be. It's not, is it? I don't think so. Jack thought for a moment. Then very calmly, he flipped on his right turn signal and eased into the right lane. So, the lights behind him moved into the right lane. He slowed to 60. The lights slowed to 60. He took an exit he hadn't planned on. A small one. A truck stop and a Waffle House, and not much else. The lights took the exit. Jack. I see them. Jack, what are you doing? I'm finding out if they want to follow me or stop me. Jack. He pulled into the truck stop. Wide gravel lot. A few semis idling along the back fence. A diesel pump glowing yellow under a sodium light. He drove past the pumps, looped behind the building, killed his lights, and tucked the Bronco between two parked 18-wheelers. He cut the engine. In the back seat, Lily stirred but didn't wake. A moment later, the SUV rolled past the front of the truck stop. Slowly. Black. Tinted windows. No plates Jack could see. It didn't pull in. It kept going. Drifted toward the on-ramp back to the highway. But it didn't get on the highway. It pulled over on the shoulder just past the on-ramp and killed its lights. Sitting. Waiting. Jack swore under his breath soft enough that Lily wouldn't wake up. He's parked, Sarah said. He's parked. He's waiting for us to come back out. He's waiting for us to come back out. Jack stared through the windshield at the dark gravel lot and the yellow glow of the truck stop sign. Detective Mitchell. Yes. How far does the back of this truck stop go? What? Is there a service road, a back exit, anything that lets a vehicle out the rear of this property without going past that on-ramp? Sarah pulled out her phone, winced at the pain of the movement, and pulled up a map. There's a frontage road, runs parallel to the highway for about 3 miles before it rejoins. If you take it, you come out at the next exit. He won't see you go. Then that's what we're doing. He'll figure it out eventually. He'll see we're not coming back out the front. He'll move. Yeah, but by the time he does, we'll be 10 miles ahead and on a different road. Jack started the engine again very quietly. He kept the lights off. He rolled the Bronco around the back of the building, found the gravel service road, and eased onto it without ever showing the front of the building or the on-ramp. In the back seat, Lily slept on oblivious. In the passenger seat, Sarah Mitchell pressed her hand against her bandaged ribs and breathed through gritted teeth. In the driver's seat, Jack Morrison drove slow and steady through the dark, watching the mirrors, watching the road, watching for the next pair of headlights that would tell him this thing wasn't over. Because it wasn't over. It was just getting started. The frontage road dumped them out 2 exits south, and Jack didn't take a full breath until the Bronco was back on I-75 with the Toledo skyline glowing soft in the distance. Even then, it wasn't a real breath. It was the kind of breath a man takes when he's just bought himself an hour and he knows the hour is borrowed. Detective? Yes. I need you to tell me about the man following us. I don't know him by sight. Then tell me what kind of man Harris hires. Because that black SUV wasn't a beat cop in a department vehicle. That was a professional. Sarah was quiet for a long moment, staring at the white lines coming at them. Harris keeps 2 kinds of muscle around him. The first kind is the dirty cops in his unit. They handle paperwork-level dirty work. They sit on warrants. They tip off targets. They bury reports. They don't do field work like this. They're not built for it. And the second kind. The second kind is the people Harris hires off the books. Mostly former military. Mostly guys who washed out of contracting jobs in Iraq and Afghanistan because they did things even private security companies wouldn't sign off on. He pays them through the shell companies. They don't show up on any roster. They don't have badges. They don't have rules. Jack's jaw worked. How many of them does he have? I have names of 4. There may be more. 4. 4 that I have names for. Detective Mitchell. Yes. You have got to start telling me things before I have to ask. We're past the part where you give me information one piece at a time. We are now in the part where I need everything you know in your head dumped into mine in the next 20 minutes. Because if I get blindsided by something at 3 in the morning on a back road in Ohio with my daughter in the back seat, I'm not going to forgive you for it. So talk. Sarah let out a slow breath. You're right. I know I'm right. Talk. She talked. She told him names. Daniel Voss, ex-Army Ranger, did 2 tours in Iraq, dishonorable discharge for an incident involving a civilian he wouldn't talk about. Voss was the cleaner. He was the one who handled the things that needed to look like accidents. The guy in the river with his hands tied, that was Voss. Then there was Marcus Whitley. No relation to her informant, a former Marine who ran a small security firm in Romulus that did nothing but launder Harris's payroll. Whitley was the dispatcher. He was the one who called the others when there was work. Then there was Eric Cole, a former state trooper who'd been kicked off the force 10 years ago for excessive force and had drifted into Harris's orbit through one of the bail bondsmen. Cole was the one who'd shot her. She was sure of it. She'd seen his face through her windshield in the half-second before her car hit the guardrail. And then there was a 4th man. She didn't have a name for him. She only had a description given to her by an informant who later disappeared, tall, white, mid-50s, gray hair, cut close to the scalp, a tattoo of a rattlesnake on the inside of his right wrist. The informant had called him the Old Man. That was the one who scared her the most, because nobody she'd talked to had ever seen him do a job. They'd only ever seen him show up the day before something terrible happened to somebody. "And you think he might be in the SUV behind us?" Jack said. "I don't know who's in the SUV, but if it's the Old Man, then Harris doesn't just want me dead. He wants the drive back, and he wants whoever I gave it to dead too." Jack glanced at Lily in the rear view. She was still asleep, her cheek pressed against Mr. Button's. "Detective, listen to me very carefully." "I'm listening. My daughter does not become a witness. My daughter does not become a target. My daughter does not become anything to any of these men. Do you understand me? Whatever happens when this is over, the Old Man does not know my daughter exists." Sarah nodded. "Then we don't go to my brother's place," Jack went on. "We don't go anywhere a man with my last name might be expected to go. They tracked us out of my neighborhood somehow. Maybe a tail I didn't catch. Maybe somebody at the gas station I stopped at 3 days ago. Doesn't matter. They know my truck. They know my face. We assume they know my brother. What do you want to do?" Jack thought. "I want to drop Lily." The words came out hard, like he was breaking a tooth on them. "I want to drop her with somebody Harris and his people have no way of connecting to me. Not my brother, not Mrs. Henderson, not anybody on a list. I want her safe, and I want her invisible. Then you and I are going to Cleveland alone, and then I'm coming back for her." "Who?" Jack was quiet for a long moment. The Bronco's heater wheezed against the cold. "There's a woman," he said finally. "Her name is Karen. She's an old friend of my mother's. She lives in a town called Bowling Green, about 30 miles south of Toledo. My mother used to take me out there in the summer when I was a kid. Karen's husband died 10 years ago. She's 76, and she lives alone in a farmhouse off the county highway. I haven't called her in 2 years. There is no phone record connecting her to me. There is no email. There is no anything. She is the kind of woman who, if I knock on her door at 4 in the morning with my daughter and tell her some men want to hurt us, will let us in and not ask a question I'm not ready to answer." "How sure are you?" "I am as sure of Karen Holloway as I am of anything in this world." "Then let's go." Jack took the next exit. The county roads were narrow and dark and almost completely empty at this hour, which was both a comfort and a problem comfort, because there was nobody to see them problem, because if anybody was following them now, they'd stand out like a flare. Jack drove with one eye on the road and one eye on the rearview mirror. Nothing. No headlights. No movement. For now. It was 4:15 in the morning when he pulled into Karen Holloway's gravel driveway. The farmhouse was small and white with a wraparound porch and a single light burning over the front door. The kind of light an old woman leaves on out of habit because her husband used to come home late from work and she never got around to turning it off after he was gone. Jack put the Bronco in park. "Wait here," he said softly. He got out, walked up the porch steps and knocked. 3 soft, evenly spaced knocks. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then a light came on in an upstairs window. Then a light in the hallway. Then footsteps slow and deliberate coming down a wooden staircase. The porch light came on. The front door opened a crack. A woman's eye behind a chain lock peered out. "Karen," Jack said quietly. "It's Jack Morrison, Mary's son." The eye blinked. "Jackie." "Yes, ma'am." "Jackie what? In the Lord's name." "Karen, I need your help. I need it very badly, and I need it with no questions until I'm ready to give you answers. Will you help me?" She didn't hesitate. "Boy, you get in this house." The chain came off. The door opened. 5 minutes later, Karen Holloway, a small, sharp-eyed woman in a flannel robe and slippers with iron-gray hair in a long braid down her back, was standing in her front hall with Lily half asleep, leaning against her hip. Karen's hand was stroking Lily's hair in a way that told Jack everything he needed to know about what kind of woman his mother had picked for a friend. "How long?" Karen said. "How long? 48 hours, maybe less, maybe 72. I'll call when I'm coming. The number will come up unknown. The phrase will be, 'The porch light's on.' Anything else you hang up and you call the sheriff." "All right." "There's a woman in the truck. She's a Detroit detective. She's been shot. I need to get her somewhere very specific in the next 2 hours. I'll explain when I come back." "You eaten first?" Karen. "Boy, you have not eaten since lunch yesterday and I can see it on your face. You will eat a piece of toast and a cup of coffee, and the detective in your truck will eat the same, and then you will go. I am not negotiating." Jack actually laughed. It came out a little broken, but it was real. "Yes, ma'am." Karen made coffee in a percolator on the stove, the way his mother used to, and toasted 4 slices of white bread and put butter and strawberry jam on every one of them. Jack carried 2 slices and a thermos out to the Bronco. Sarah looked at the toast like she didn't recognize what it was. "Eat it, detective." "I'm not hungry." "You're bleeding. You need calories. Eat it." She ate it. Jack went back inside. He kissed his daughter on the forehead. Lily was already half asleep again, curled up under a quilt on Karen's couch, Mr. Buttons under her arm. "Daddy." "Yeah, baby." "Are you coming back?" The room went very still. Jack knelt down so that his face was level with hers. "Lily Morrison." "Yeah." "Look at me." She opened her eyes. "I am coming back. I am always coming back. You hear me? Always. There is no version of this world where I do not come back to you. That is not a thing that exists. Do you understand?" She nodded slow. "I love you, Daddy." "I love you more than anything that has ever been or ever will be. I'll see you in 2 days. Be good for Miss Karen." "I will." "Yeah." He kissed her again. He stood up. He looked at Karen. Karen looked at him. Neither of them said anything because neither of them needed to. He walked out. He got back in the Bronco. He didn't speak for the first 10 miles. Sarah didn't push him. She just watched the side mirror and let him have his 10 miles. When he finally spoke, his voice was different, lower, flatter. "Cleveland. Cleveland. How do we get to Diane Castellanos?" "There's a number she gave me, burner to burner. I memorized it. We get to a payphone or a motel landline and I call her. We agree on a meet. She lives in a converted warehouse in Ohio City, west side of Cleveland near the Hope Memorial Bridge. But she won't have us come there. She'll pick a place. She always picks the place. It's how she stays alive." Smart woman. Smartest reporter in the Midwest. "You trust her?" "With my life, and right now with yours." Jack nodded slowly. The Bronco hummed on through the dark. Toledo had come and gone behind them. The signs for Cleveland were starting to appear one every 10 miles or so. Cleveland, 142. Cleveland, 128. Cleveland, 116. Detective. Yes. While we drive, I want you to do something for me. Anything. I want you to make me a list, in your head, out loud, of every single name in your case, every dirty cop, every contractor, every shell company, every place a payment was made or a meeting was held. I want it all in my head. Because if anything happens to you between now and Cleveland, anything, I want to walk into Diane Castellanos' office with that flash drive, and I want to tell her enough that she runs the story even without you. So I'm going to memorize your case, Detective Mitchell. The whole damn thing. Start talking. Sarah looked at him for a long moment. You're not a mechanic, Jack Morrison. Yes, I am, ma'am. You're a mechanic who used to be something else. He didn't answer. She let it go. She started talking. She talked for the better part of an hour. She gave him the 23 names. She gave him the 4 contractors. She gave him the shell companies Hamtramck Auto Spa, Highland Park Bonding Services, Warren Construction Solutions, Eastside Property Holdings. 3 more besides. She gave him the 3 murders. She gave him the dates Marcus had handed her the drive. She gave him the names of the federal agents she trusted and the federal agents she wasn't sure about. She gave him the deputy chief who had been running her, a man named Walter Briggs, and the 4 fellow IA officers who had known fragments of her case, but never the whole. Jack listened. He didn't interrupt. He turned each piece of information over in his mind and pinned it down. By the time she stopped, the Cleveland skyline was a smear of lights on the horizon, and the dashboard clock read 6:14 in the morning. Detective? Yes. You did not just give me a list. No, you gave me a confession. If anything happens to you in the next 4 hours and I make it to Diane Castellanos with what's in my head, that woman is going to publish a story that ends Captain Raymond Harris's life. Forever. Yes, Jack, that's the point. You wanted a witness. I wanted a witness who, if I die, will not be afraid to talk. I wanted a witness whose only motivation for being involved is that he stopped on a dark road for a stranger. There is no version of this where Harris's lawyers can claim you are biased, or paid off, or politically motivated. You are a mechanic from Detroit who pulled a dying woman out of a wrecked car. That is not a witness anybody can discredit. That is a witness that ends a man like Harris. Jack tightened his hands on the wheel. You used me. Yes. You used me from the second you grabbed my wrist. Yes. Detective. Yes. I would have helped you anyway. You didn't have to use me. I would have helped you anyway. Sarah closed her eyes. When she opened them, they were wet. I know, she said quietly. I know that now. I didn't know it on the side of the road. I'm sorry. Jack drove for another mile in silence. Make the call, he said finally. What? Find a payphone. Call your reporter. We're 40 minutes out. Set the meet. Jack, there's something else. What? She hesitated. There's a man. In the case. He doesn't fit. What do you mean he doesn't fit? Bah. On the spreadsheet of monthly payments, there's a name that's been receiving smaller, irregular amounts for the last 3 years. Not from the criminal crews. From Harris himself. Personal payments out of a personal account into another personal account. They're labeled as security consulting, but the amounts are too small for that. They're more like a retainer. What's the name? Ryan Morrison. The Bronco swerved a foot into the next lane before Jack caught it. His brother's name. His brother's name was on the spreadsheet. His brother Ryan Morrison, 2 years younger, single, no kids, worked private security in Detroit for a company called Sentinel Solutions, lived alone in a condo near the river, and called Jack on Christmas and Lily's birthday, and almost never any other day his brother's name was on Captain Harris's payroll. You're sure? I'm sure. How sure? His social security number is on the spreadsheet, Jack. Jack pulled the Bronco onto the shoulder. He didn't say anything. He sat there with his hands at 10 and 2 on the wheel, and his eyes on the dashboard, and his jaw working in a way that he hadn't let it work in front of anybody since the day Rebecca told him about Trevor. "Why didn't you tell me? When I said we were going to Ryan's, why didn't you say something?" "Because I didn't recognize the name when you said it. I knew there was a Ryan Morrison on the list. I didn't connect it to you until you said his job was private security. And by then, we were already on a different road." "You should have said it the second you connected it." "Yes, I should have." "My daughter." "Yes. You almost let me drive my daughter into the home of a man who is on Captain Raymond Harris's personal payroll." "Jack, you stop talking, detective. You stop talking for 1 minute. You let me sit with this." She stopped talking. He sat with it. He thought about Ryan, 2 years younger, who had worshipped him as a kid, who had cried at their father's funeral until he made himself sick, who had called Jack 3 years ago and said he was getting a new job in private security, and the money was good, and he was finally going to get out from under his bills. Ryan, who had bought Lily a bicycle for her 9th birthday, a real nice one, more than Jack would have spent. Ryan, who had said when Jack asked where the money came from, "Just a good year, big brother. Just a good year. He's not in the unit," Jack said finally. "Right. He's not one of Harris's 23 cops." "No. He's a contractor. He's something. The amounts don't match the 4 contractors I have names for. He's smaller, more periodic. My best guess is he's a courier, or a watcher. Somebody who runs occasional errands for Harris and gets paid in retainer." "Does he know?" "Know what? Does he know who he's working for? Does he know what Harris does? Does he know that the man paying his retainer has put 3 men in the ground?" Sarah took a breath. "I don't know, Jack. I genuinely don't. The amounts are small enough that he could be operating on a need-to-know basis. He could think Harris is a private client through Sentinel. Sentinel does have legitimate police contracts. Some of their contractors don't know who their actual clients are. But he could know. He could know." Jack was quiet for a long moment. Then he pulled back onto the highway. "I'll deal with my brother when this is over," he said. "After Cleveland, after the story, after my daughter is back in my arms. I will deal with my brother. He is not a problem we are solving today. Today, we are solving Harris." "Yes, Jack." "Make the call, detective. Find me a payphone." Jette. She found one at a truck stop outside Sandusky. Jack pulled in. She got out slow and hurting, and he went with her, the shotgun in a duffel bag over his shoulder. She used the payphone outside the diner. She fed it quarters from the change jar Jack kept in the Bronco's console, and she dialed a number she had memorized 14 months ago and never written down. Diane Castellanos picked up on the second ring. "Yeah." "It's Sarah Mitchell." A pause. A long one. "Sarah, you're supposed to be dead." "I almost was." "Are you secure?" "I'm in Sandusky with a civilian who pulled me out of my wreck. I have the drive." A longer pause. "Get to Cleveland. Hope Memorial Bridge. There's a coffee shop on the West End called the Flying Fig. Be there at 9. Don't be early. Don't be late. Come in alone. Your civilian sits in the car. I see anybody else with you, I leave. Do you understand?" "Yes." "And Sarah?" "Yes. If you bring a tail, I disappear and the story dies, so make damn sure you don't bring a tail." The line clicked dead. Sarah hung up the phone. She turned to Jack. 9 o'clock. The Flying Fig. West end of the Hope Memorial Bridge. Jack checked his watch. "That's 2 hours and 40 minutes. Drive's an hour and 10. Then we have time to clean up, and to make sure we don't have a tail." Jack glanced out at the parking lot. A black SUV pulled into the truck stop on the far side 200 yards away. It parked. It killed its lights. It didn't move. Sarah saw it the same instant he did. "Jack." "Yeah. That's the same vehicle." I see it. They found us again. Jack thought for 1 second. 2. 3. Then he reached into the duffel bag at his feet and put his hand on the cold steel of the shotgun, not pulling it out, just holding it. Detective Mitchell. Yes. How do you feel about us not running this time? Sarah's eyes stayed on the SUV across the parking lot. Jack, don't. I'm not asking permission, detective. I'm asking what you think. I think you have a daughter sleeping at a farmhouse in Bowling Green. I am very aware of where my daughter is. Then you know the answer. Jack's hand stayed on the shotgun. His eyes stayed on the SUV. They're going to keep finding us, he said quietly. They found us in Detroit. They found us at the truck stop in Monroe. They found us again here. Somebody is putting them on us. And until I know how every mile we drive is a mile, they get to stay close. We get to Cleveland with that thing on our tail your reporter walks. You said it yourself. She sees a tail, she disappears, the story dies. So we lose them. We've been trying to lose them. They keep coming back. Somebody is tracking us, detective. There's a beacon on this truck, or there's a leak in your end, or there's somebody watching the highways for an old green Bronco. Whichever one it is, I can't fix it driving. What are you proposing? I'm proposing I walk over there with a shotgun and a tire iron, and I find out who's in that SUV. Jack. Yes. You are not a soldier anymore. The words landed. He didn't turn his head, but his jaw tightened. I never said I was. You didn't have to say it. I've watched you for 9 hours. I know what kind of training a man has by the way he carries a shotgun across a back seat. You were a medic. Combat medic, Iraq 2004 or 5 if I had to guess from your age. You patched a man up tonight on a kitchen table with fishing line and bourbon, and you didn't blink. You were good at your job. You were probably very good at your job. But you have not done that job in 20 years, Jack. You are out of practice, and the men in that SUV are not. Jack didn't move. You walk over there. Sarah went on low and steady. And at best you take one of them down, and the other one calls Voss and Cole and the old man, and tells them exactly where we are. At worst you don't take anybody down, and Lily wakes up tomorrow morning at Karen Holloway's farmhouse, and she does not have a father anymore. Is that what you want? Look at me, Jack. Is that what you want? He looked at her. His hand came off the shotgun. No. Then we don't run and we don't fight. We do something smarter. Like what? Like we make them think we're somewhere we're not. Jack looked at her. Talk. Inside that diner there are about a dozen vehicles in the lot, truckers mostly, a couple of cars. I want you to walk inside alone, slow, casual. You go to the bathroom, you come out, you sit at the counter and you order coffee. You take 20 minutes. While you're in there, I want you to find a trucker. Older, friendly face, wedding ring, picture of grandkids on his phone. The kind of man who, if a woman in a baseball cap and a too big flannel slides into the booth next to him and says, "Please, I'm in trouble. My ex-husband is outside in a black SUV and he's going to hurt me," will get up and help her without asking too many questions. Jack was quiet. Detective. Yes. You want to use a civilian. Jabba. I want to borrow a ride, 40 miles. A trucker heading east on 76. We sit in his cab for 40 miles. The Bronco stays here. The black SUV sits in this parking lot, waiting for us to come back out of a building we are no longer in. By the time they figure out the Bronco is empty, we are an hour east in a vehicle that has never been on their radar. We get dropped at a rest stop outside Cleveland. We walk into a coffee shop in Ohio City at 9 o'clock. We hand off the drive. We end this. You want me to ditch the Bronco? Yes. It was my father's. Yes. It was the last thing he and I built together before he died. Sarah's voice softened. Jack, I know. He looked at the steering wheel. He thought about the night his father had taught him to set the timing on this engine, the two of them under the hood with a shop light, his father coughing into a rag and pretending it was nothing. He thought about the year he'd spent restoring this truck after the funeral. He thought about every single weekend he'd put into it, as therapy, as memorial, as the only language he had left for grief. It's a piece of metal, Jack. Don't. It's a piece of metal, and your father is not in it. He's in you. The truck is just a truck. Jack closed his eyes. He opened them. Yeah. 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 Let's do it your way. He killed the engine, took the keys out, looked at them in his palm for one long second. Then he put them in the cup holder where any opportunist passing by could find them. If somebody steals it, that's even better cover. That's the spirit. He grabbed the duffel bag with the shotgun. He stuffed his wallet, the $1,100 cash, and the flash drive into the inside pocket of his coat. He helped Sarah out of the passenger seat. She winced as her feet hit the ground, but she didn't make a sound. They walked across the lot toward the diner, the way two ordinary people walked across a parking lot. Slow. Tired. Nothing to see. Jack could feel the eyes from the SUV on his back the whole way. He didn't look. He didn't speed up. He pushed open the diner door and held it for her, and they walked inside. The bell over the door jingled. A waitress glanced up. Two truckers at the counter glanced over. A booth full of road crew guys didn't look up from their plates. "Bathrooms in the back, hon," the waitress said. "Thank you, ma'am." Jack went to the bathroom because that was the play. Sarah took a booth near the back corner where the window looked out over the rear lot, not the front. She ordered a coffee and a piece of dry toast. Then, when Jack came back, he didn't sit with her. He sat at the counter 3 stools down from the truckers. He ordered black coffee and bacon and eggs over easy. He ate slow. He chatted a little with the man on his right, a heavy-set guy, 60s beard going white, John Deere cap. Hauling? Pumpkins. Pumpkins. 20,000 pounds of them, headed for a distribution center outside Pittsburgh. You believe that pumpkins in February. Where do they go? Pies mostly. Pumpkin spice everything. They freeze them, process them, sell them year-round. Whole industry I didn't know existed till I started running this route. That right? That's right. Jack let the conversation drift for a few minutes. Pumpkins. Grandkids. 6 of them, 2 daughters. The older one was a nurse at the VA in Pittsburgh. The younger one had married a real piece of work, and Lord, the man hoped that one didn't last. Jack listened. He nodded in the right places. He laughed once small when the man told a joke about his son-in-law. He didn't push. After about 15 minutes, when the man had finished his eggs and was working on his second cup of coffee, Jack glanced toward the back booth. Sarah was watching him. He gave her the smallest nod. She got up, walked to the counter, slid onto the stool on the other side of the trucker. "Sir," she said quietly, "forgive me. I don't know your name. My name is Sarah. The man on your other side is Jack. He's a good man, and he just helped me out of a very bad situation. There's a vehicle in the front parking lot with 2 men in it who would like to put me back into that situation. I need a ride. 40 miles, east on 76. I have cash. I am not a threat to you, and neither is he. We will sit in your sleeper if that makes you more comfortable. We will not say a word. We just need to get past the next 40 miles in a vehicle that those men do not know." The trucker, Earl was his name. Jack had picked it up over the eggs, looked at Sarah for a long time. He looked at Jack. He looked at the bandage just barely visible at the collar of her flannel. He looked at the tired, scared woman who was trying very hard not to show that she was tired and scared. He looked back into his coffee. "My oldest girl," he said quietly, "the nurse at the VA. The reason she's a nurse is because when she was 19 she was in a situation, boyfriend, bad one. Police didn't help her, hospital did. Lady doctor at that hospital looked her in the eye and said, 'Sweetheart, you do not have to go back there and we are not going to let you.' She didn't go back. That doctor saved her life." He turned the coffee cup in his hands. "I don't know what you're doing," he said. "I don't want to know. But I have not been the kind of man who walks past trouble in a long damn time. Y'all finish your food. I'll be in the green Peterbilt out by the pumps. White lettering on the door says Schroeder Farms. I'll have the engine running. Thank you, sir. Thank me when you're somewhere safe, miss. He left a 20 on the counter and walked out. Jack ate slower for another 4 minutes. Sarah stayed at the counter. They didn't acknowledge each other. The waitress refilled Jack's coffee and asked if he wanted pie. He said no thank you and paid in cash. He left a good tip, the kind of tip you leave when you don't want to be remembered as cheap, because a cheap tipper sticks in a waitress's memory. He walked out the side door of the diner, the one that opened onto the gravel by the propane tanks instead of the main parking lot. Sarah came out a minute behind him. The black SUV was still parked across the lot. The green Peterbilt was idling out by the pumps, exactly where Earl had said it would be. The passenger door was open a crack. They walked. They didn't look at the SUV. Sarah climbed up into the cab first, slow and gritting her teeth. Jack followed and pulled the door shut behind him. Earl looked over from the driver's seat. Sleepers behind that curtain. Y'all might want to duck back there till we're on the on-ramp. Yes, sir. They ducked. Earl put the truck into gear. The big diesel rumbled. The Peterbilt rolled forward, looped around the back of the diner, eased onto the access road, and a minute later was up the on-ramp and onto eastbound 76. Jack peeked out from behind the sleeper curtain after about 5 miles. The SUV was nowhere in sight. Earl watched him in the side mirror. Y'all clean back there? Yes, sir. Looks like it. Good. Come on up. Got a thermos of coffee that's better than anything that diner served. They came up. Sarah took the passenger seat. Jack squeezed onto the small jump seat behind her. Earl drove without saying much for the first 10 miles, and that was a kindness because they were both spent in a way that didn't have words yet. After a while, Earl said, "You don't have to tell me anything, but I will say this. There's an ex-cop I know in Akron runs a body shop now. If you need a vehicle, no questions, cash only, he can put one under you in an hour. I can call him." Sarah looked at him. "Sir, that is a kind offer. We have a meeting at 9 in Cleveland. We don't need a vehicle to get there. We need to be dropped at the rest stop outside the city. Then we'll find our way. Westbound rest area on 71 north of Strongsville. I'll drop you there. Cab service runs out of that lot. Take you anywhere you want to go. That works? Then that's where we're going." He drove. Jack let himself close his eyes for the first time in 18 hours. He didn't sleep. He couldn't sleep. But he let his eyes close and let the rumble of the diesel under him take some of the weight off his chest. He thought about Lily in Karen Holloway's living room. He thought about his brother Ryan and the spreadsheet, and the question of whether Ryan knew what he was working for. He thought about Captain Raymond Harris, a man he had never met, a man who right now was somewhere in Detroit, waking up to the news that his cleanup crew had not actually cleaned up. He thought about Diane Castellanos. And he thought about how quiet the world gets sometimes in the last hour before a thing changes forever. Earl dropped them at the rest area at 7:45. He wouldn't take their money. "Don't insult me, son." "Earl, I said don't insult me. You go do whatever it is you're doing, and when it's done, you remember an old fool in a Peterbilt was kind to you. Then next time you see somebody else needs the same, you be the Peterbilt. That's how it goes around. That's how it always went around." Jack shook his hand, hard, held it a beat too long. "Yes, sir." "God bless, son. God bless, miss." He drove away, drove. Jack stood in the parking lot for a moment with Sarah at his side, and he watched the green truck roll back out onto the interstate, and he didn't say anything because there wasn't anything to say. Jack. Yeah. That was a good man. Yeah. There are still good men in this country. Yeah, detective, I know. That's the only reason I'm still standing. They got a cab. The driver was an older black man named Curtis, who didn't ask any questions about why two beat-up-looking white people with no luggage needed a ride from a rest stop to Ohio City at 8 in the morning. He just took the fare and turned up the radio low to gospel. They were at the corner of West 25th and Lorraine by 8:40. Jack paid the cab. He gave Curtis a $40 tip on a $28 fare. Curtis nodded and said, "God bless," and drove away. "The Flying Fig is 2 blocks north," Sarah said. "How are you feeling?" "I'm bleeding through the bandage on my ribs." "How bad?" "Manageable." "Sit on the bench. I'll go scout the coffee shop." Jack: "I am going to walk past the coffee shop and around the block. I am going to look for vehicles I do not like. I am going to look for men I do not like. Then I am coming back here. Then we will go in together. I am not asking, detective." "Okay. Stay on this bench. If anything happens, anybody approaches you who is not me, you stand up and you walk into that drugstore on the corner and you tell the clerk to call the police and you hand them this." He pulled the flash drive out of his inside pocket and held it out. She didn't take it. "Jack, if I'm not with you, that drive doesn't mean anything. They'll think it's nothing. They'll lose it. The whole point is me being there to authenticate it. Then take it as a backup. If something goes wrong on the way in, get this drive into Diane Castellanos' hands, by any means necessary." She took it. He squeezed her shoulder once, lightly, the good shoulder. Then he walked. He walked the block north. He walked around the block. He walked it again the other direction. He was looking for black SUVs. He was looking for men sitting alone in cars. He was looking for anything that didn't fit. He found nothing. The street was waking up small businesses, opening a couple coming out of a bagel shop with paper bags, a city worker hosing down a sidewalk. It looked clean. He didn't trust how clean it looked. He came back to the bench. Sarah was where he had left her. He held out his hand. She gave him back the flash drive. He put it back in his coat. "Walk slow," he said, "like we belong here." They walked. The Flying Fig was a small place. Brick front wooden door. A chalkboard out front, advertising eggs and toast and good coffee. Jack pulled the door open. The bell jingled. He let Sarah go in first. Inside, the smell of coffee and bacon hit them. A handful of customers, early morning regulars, a couple of construction guys, a woman with a laptop. Behind the counter, a young woman with green hair was running an espresso machine. In the corner booth by the back wall, with her back to the wall and her eyes on the door, sat a small woman in her 40s. Dark, curly hair, sharp brown eyes. No makeup. A battered laptop bag on the bench beside her, and a mug of black coffee in front of her. She nodded once. Sarah walked toward her. Jack followed 2 steps behind, keeping his eyes on the door, on the windows, on every face in the room. Sarah slid into the booth across from Diane Castellanos. Jack stayed standing for a half-second scanning. Then he sat next to Sarah. Diane looked at him. "Who is he?" "His name is Jack Morrison. He pulled me out of my car last night. He carried me to his house. He stitched my wounds. He drove me here. He has heard everything I know. He is here because if I go down between now and the time you publish, he can finish telling you the story." Diane studied him for a long, hard second. "Mr. Morrison?" "Ma'am." "Are you a cop?" "No, ma'am." "What are you?" "I'm a mechanic from Detroit." She looked at him for another beat. Then a small, dry smile crossed her mouth. "You're a mechanic from Detroit?" "Yes, ma'am." "And you stopped on the side of the road last night for a stranger you didn't know was a cop, and now you're sitting in a diner in Cleveland with the most explosive evidence package in the state of Michigan in your coat pocket." "That sounds about right, ma'am." And she laughed. It wasn't a happy laugh. It was the laugh of a woman who had spent her life watching corruption rot the country and had just been reminded for the millionth time that the only thing that ever fought it was ordinary people refusing to drive past. "Mr. Morrison, I would like to shake your hand." He held it out. She shook it, hard, like Earl. "Sarah, give me the drive." "Sarah, give me the—" Sarah looked at Jack. Jack reached into his coat. He pulled out the flash drive. He set it on the table between them. A small black piece of plastic. Diane took it. She slipped it into a small lead-lined pouch from her laptop bag. The pouch went into a Faraday cage envelope. The envelope went into a hard plastic case. The case went into the laptop bag. The laptop bag did not leave her side. "Sarah, tell me what's on it, in your words, so I can match it against the files." "That," Sarah told her. The same list she had given Jack on the road. The names, the shell companies, the murders, the audio, the spreadsheet, the bank records, the photographs. Diane didn't write anything down. She listened. Her eyes never left Sarah's face. When Sarah was done, Diane sat back. "Sarah?" "Yes." "You understand what this is?" "Yes." "You understand what happens when I publish?" "Yes." "They are going to come for me. They are going to come for you. They are going to come for him. They are going to come for anybody he loves. Once this story breaks, every dirty cop on Harris's payroll, every contractor he employs, every politician who took money from him, they are all going to be looking for people to make examples of. To show what happens when somebody tries to expose the network. We are not safe the day this story runs. We are not safe the week after. We may not be safe for months. I understand." Diane looked at Jack. "Mr. Morrison, do you understand?" Jack thought about Lily. He thought about Karen's farmhouse. He thought about Ryan and the spreadsheet and the question that still sat unanswered in his chest. "Yes, ma'am, I understand. There is still time to walk away. I have the drive. Sarah has authenticated it. I can publish and protect my sources. You can walk out of this diner, go back to Detroit, and tell anybody who asks that you don't know any Sarah Mitchell and you were home all night last night." Jack looked at her. "Ma'am, with respect, there has not been a single moment since I pulled this woman out of her car when walking away was a thing I could do. You're asking me a question that doesn't have an answer." Diane Castellanos looked at him for a long moment. Then she nodded once slow. "Then welcome to the story, Mr. Morrison." She turned to Sarah. "I publish in 36 hours, Sunday night, 11 p.m. Eastern. Cable picks it up by midnight. The Times is going to have it by 6 a.m. Monday because I'm sending them an embargoed copy at 5. The FBI gets a separate copy at the same time. By Monday lunch, Captain Raymond Harris's life is over." Sarah closed her eyes. When she opened them, there were tears in them again. This time, she let one fall. "Thank you. Don't thank me, Sarah. This is the easy part. The hard part is staying alive for the next 36 hours. She slid a small folded piece of paper across the table. "This is the address of a safe house I keep in Lakewood. 2-bedroom apartment over a laundromat. Owner's an old friend of mine. No paper trail. You and Mr. Morrison go there. You stay there until I publish. Don't leave. Don't make calls. Don't order food. There are groceries in the kitchen. Lock the door. Wait." Sarah took the paper. "Thank you, Diane." "Get out of here. Go now. I have work to do." Jack and Sarah got up. They were almost at the door when Diane called out, "Mr. Morrison?" He turned. "Yeah." "Whoever raised you, tell them when you see them again, they did it right." Jack swallowed. "My father's been dead 7 years, ma'am." "Then tell him at his grave." "Yes, ma'am, I will." He walked out into the cold Cleveland morning with a wounded detective beside him and a small folded paper in his pocket, and the feeling for the first time in 24 hours that maybe they were going to make it through this. He should have known better. Mese, because 3 blocks away in the back seat of a black SUV that had been parked on a Cleveland side street since 7 that morning, a tall white man in his mid-50s with gray hair cut close to the scalp and a rattlesnake tattoo on the inside of his right wrist was watching the front door of the Flying Fig through a pair of binoculars. He lowered them. He picked up his phone. He dialed one number. When the voice on the other end answered, the old man said only 4 words. "Found her, with civilians." Then he hung up and he waited. The old man waited. He was good at waiting. He had been waiting on people for 41 years in jungles and deserts and parking lots and apartment hallways, and the one thing he had learned in all that time was that patience was a weapon. He sat in the back seat of the black SUV with the binoculars resting on his thigh and a paper cup of gas station coffee going cold in the cup holder, and he watched the front of the Flying Fig. In the front seat, Eric Cole was tapping his thumb on the steering wheel. "Stop tapping," the old man said. Cole stopped tapping. "How long do we wait?" "Until they come out. And then we follow. We do not engage on this street. There are too many windows, too many cameras. We follow until they make it easy." Harris said, "Harris is in Detroit. I am in Cleveland. When you are in Cleveland, you do what I say. Are we clear?" "Clear." The old man lifted the binoculars again. And 3 blocks away, Jack Morrison and Sarah Mitchell stepped out of the coffee shop and started walking south on West 25th. They were walking slow, carefully. The woman was clearly hurt, favoring her left side hand braced under her ribs. The man was scanning. The old man recognized the scan. It was the kind of scan you didn't learn at a community college. It was the kind of scan you learned overseas. "Cole." "Yeah, the civilian is not a civilian. Or he wasn't always. Tell Voss when you check in." "Got it." Jack and Sarah turned a corner. The old man waited a full minute. Then he tapped the back of Cole's seat. "Go. 2 blocks behind. Do not crowd them." The SUV pulled away from the curb. Jack felt it before he saw it. He had been a man for a long time who could feel a thing watching him. Iraq had given him that, and he had never quite been able to put it down, not in 20 years of suburban Detroit, not in 14 years of marriage, not in the 5 years since Rebecca had walked out the door. He felt it now in his shoulder blades, the way a deer feels a hunter through the trees. "Sarah." "Yeah." "Don't look. Keep walking. We've got a tail again." Her face stayed neutral. She didn't break stride. "How far?" "Block and a half. Black SUV. Same one." "How?" "I don't know. But this time I want to know before we go anywhere near that safe house. Because if they follow us to Diane's safe house and they hit us there, then Diane is the next stop on their list, and Diane has the drive, and the whole thing dies in a Lakewood laundromat tonight." "What do you want to do?" Jack thought. "I want to split up." "Jack, listen, they are following 2 of us together. If we split, they have to choose. They will choose you. You are the target. The civilian is the loose end. They will follow you and let me go, so I am going to be the bait. You are going to take the laptop bag from a coffee shop bathroom. There's a side door on every one of these places. I scoped them, and you are going to walk straight to the cab stand at Tower City, and you are going to take a cab to Lakewood, alone. They will follow me. I will lose them. I will meet you at the safe house in 2 hours. "Jack, no, they want me. If we split, they take me, not you. They want the drive detective. The drive is not on you anymore. It's with Diane. They don't know that yet. But they will assume the drive is on whoever runs, and the only one running is going to be me." She stopped walking. "Jack Morrison." "Don't. You will get yourself killed." "I will not get myself killed. I will lead them into a place where they cannot do anything to me without showing themselves, and then I will lose them, and I will meet you at the safe house. I have done this before, detective. Not this exactly. But I have moved through hostile territory with somebody trying to kill me. It is not new to me. It is not new. She looked at him. She knew it wasn't new to him. She had known since the first hour. Where do you go? I go to a public place with cameras. I go to the lobby of a federal building. There's a U.S. courthouse on Superior 11 blocks from here. They are not going to follow a man into a federal courthouse with armed marshals on the door. They will sit outside and wait. While they wait, I will walk out the back service entrance. Every federal courthouse in America has one, and I will be 8 blocks away by the time they realize I am not coming back. And how do you know the courthouse has a back service entrance? Because every building has a back service entrance, detective. Trash has to go somewhere. She almost laughed. Okay. 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 But Jack. Yeah. If you don't show at the safe house in 2 hours, I am calling Diane. And Diane is publishing tonight, not tomorrow. Tonight. I will not sit in a Lakewood apartment waiting on a man who is bleeding out somewhere because of me. Do you hear me? I hear you? 2 hours? 2 hours. She turned and walked into the bagel shop on the corner. Jack kept walking south alone, his pace steady, his hands in his coat pockets. He didn't look back. He didn't need to. He could feel the SUV adjust behind him, hesitate for a half second at the corner, and then commit. They had chosen. They were following him. Good. Now he had to make it count. He walked 11 blocks to the federal courthouse. He didn't hurry. He let them see him. He stopped once at a coffee cart and bought a coffee he didn't want. He sipped it. He kept walking. By the time he hit the steps of the courthouse, he had a clear picture in his head of what they looked like. The SUV had idled past him twice slow, pretending to look for parking. 2 men in front, maybe one in back. The one in back had not gotten out. The old man, he thought. The one Sarah had described. Jaya. He climbed the courthouse steps. He went through the metal detectors. He emptied his pocket's wallet keys, the $1,100 cash. A folded piece of paper that did not have any address on it because he had memorized the address and burned the paper in Karen Holloway's kitchen sink. The marshals waved him through. He walked across the lobby like a man with a hearing to attend. He didn't have a hearing. He walked through the lobby, past the elevator bank, down a side corridor, past a bored security guard playing solitaire on his computer, past a custodian's closet, and out a back service door that opened onto a loading dock in a narrow alley. He came out behind the courthouse and walked west fast now. 4 blocks, then south, then west again, and by the time he hit the corner of Superior and West 6th, 8 blocks from the courthouse, he was certain he had no tail. He flagged a cab. Lakewood, Detroit Avenue. Drop me anywhere on the 8,000 block. The driver nodded and pulled into traffic. In the back seat, Jack let his head rest against the window and closed his eyes for the first time in 9 hours. His hands were shaking. He hadn't noticed until now. The adrenaline was leaving his body, and the shake was filling the empty space. He thought about Lily. Man, he had not let himself think about Lily for the last hour because thinking about Lily made him soft, and he could not afford soft. But he was in the back of a cab now, and the cab was moving, and there was nothing to do for the next 20 minutes but sit. So he let himself think. He thought about her brown eyes and the way she'd looked at him last night when he'd carried Sarah Mitchell through the door, not afraid, just quiet like she had been waiting all her short life for the moment when she'd find out exactly what kind of man her father was. He thought about the way she had said, "I will," when he told her to be good for Karen Holloway. He thought about Mr. Buttons under her arm. He thought about the conversation he was going to have with his brother Ryan when this was over. He thought about whether he was going to have it sober or with a bottle of Knob Creek between them on the kitchen table. The cab dropped him on Detroit Avenue at the 8,000 block. He walked the last 6 blocks. The safe house was over a laundromat, exactly as Diane had said. The laundromat was open. There was an old Vietnamese woman behind the counter folding sheets. There was a side door next to the laundromat with a buzzer. Jack hit the buzzer. The door clicked open. He climbed a narrow flight of stairs and knocked on the apartment door at the top. Sarah opened it. She had been crying. Not because she was sad. Because she had been holding her breath for 2 hours, and now she could breathe again. "You son of a bitch," she said quietly. 35 minutes early. "You son of a bitch." She let him in. "Bunny." The apartment was small and clean and warm. Diane had not lied. There were groceries in the kitchen and a couch and 2 bedrooms and clean towels stacked on a chair. Sarah had cleaned her wounds and changed her bandages and put on a fresh long-sleeved shirt. She looked like a person again, instead of a casualty. Jack locked the door behind him. He flipped both deadbolts. He wedged a kitchen chair under the knob. Then he sat on the couch and put his face in his hands, and he was very still for a long time. Sarah sat next to him. She didn't touch him. She just sat. "My daughter," he said into his hands. "I know. My daughter is at a farmhouse in Bowling Green with a 76-year-old woman and a stuffed bear, and I am sitting on a couch in a stranger's apartment in Lakewood, and I am 36 hours away from my brother's name being on cable news as part of a Detroit corruption ring. I know. I just want to take her home." "I know, Jack." He took his hands off his face. His eyes were wet. He didn't apologize for that. "Detective?" "Yeah. I want to call my brother." She was very quiet. "Jack." "I want to call him. I want to hear his voice. I want to ask him one question. I want to know if he knows. And if he knows, then I will tell him to turn himself in tonight, before Diane publishes, because if he turns himself in tonight ahead of the story with information, the U.S. attorney will work with him. If he gets named in the story Sunday night, he is going to prison for 10 years. And if he runs Voss or Cole or the old man, we'll find him before the FBI does, and he will be dead by Tuesday. Jack, if he is part of Harris's operation and you call him, he will tell Harris. He will tell Harris where you are and where I am and where Lily is. The phone records will show your number called his. They will come for all of us within the hour. I'm not calling from my phone. There's a payphone outside the laundromat. I saw it when I came in. I'm calling from there. Block number, 60 seconds. I ask one question. I hang up. Jack. Detective, I need you to let me do this. She looked at him for a long time. You're going to do it whether I say yes or no, aren't you? Yes. Then go. 60 seconds. Not a second more. He went. The payphone was on the corner outside the laundromat. He fed it quarters. He dialed the only number he had memorized for his brother Ryan's old landline at the condo, the one Ryan never picked up, but always had a machine on. The phone rang 4 times. The machine picked up. Ryan's voice. You've reached Ryan. Leave a message. Beep. Jack hung up. He fed it more quarters. He dialed Ryan's cell. It rang twice. Hello? Ryan's voice, sleepy, probably hungover, probably just woken up at 10 in the morning the way he always did on a Saturday. Ryan, it's Jack. A pause. Big brother. Hey, what's going on? Why are you... Ryan, I have one question for you. I need you to answer it honestly. I don't have time for anything else. Are you listening? Yeah, I'm listening. Chad. 3 years ago, you took a job with Sentinel Solutions. You started making money you hadn't made before. You bought my daughter a $600 bicycle. Do you remember? Yeah, Jackie, I remember. What is this? Who is the client at Sentinel that pays your retainer? A pause. A long one. Jack, what is this? Ryan, who is your client? It's a guy. A guy named Harris. He runs some kind of police consulting thing. We do contract work for him. Background checks. Sometimes I sit on a building. Sometimes I run plates. Why?" Jack closed his eyes. His brother didn't know. His brother, God help him, didn't know. "Ryan." "Yeah. Listen to me very carefully. The man who pays your retainer is a captain in the Detroit Police Department. He is also the head of a criminal organization that runs drugs and protection rackets and has murdered at least 3 people. By 11 p.m. tomorrow night, every news outlet in the country is going to be running a story about him. Your name is on a spreadsheet of his payments. If you do nothing, you go to prison." A long, long silence. Jackie. "Yeah. Are you serious right now?" Ryan. "I have never been more serious in my life. I am calling you from a payphone in Ohio because I have spent the last 14 hours running from this man's people. They tried to kill the woman who built the case. I pulled her out of her wreck last night. She is sitting in an apartment 10 blocks from me right now. The story breaks Sunday night. You have until tomorrow morning to walk into the FBI field office in Detroit and tell them everything you have ever done for Sentinel Solutions and every dollar you ever took from Raymond Harris. If you do that, you are a witness. If you do not do that, you are a defendant." "Jack, I swear to God, I didn't know. I thought he was just—" "I believe you. That is why I am calling you. If I didn't believe you, I would be telling Diane Castellanos your name in a Lakewood safe house right now, and she would be putting it in the story. I am giving you a window, Ryan. 24 hours. Walk in. Tell them everything. Bring every record you have. Names, dates, what you did. Do not call Sentinel. Do not call Harris. Do not pack a bag. Do not warn anybody. You get up off your couch right now, and you drive to the FBI building on Michigan Avenue, and you walk in the front door." "Wow, Jackie I. Ryan, Lily loves you. You bought her a bicycle. Do this for her. Walk in. Today." A long, wet pause. "Okay. Say it." I'll go right now." Ryan. "Yeah. I love you, brother." "I love you too, Jackie." Jack hung up. He stood at the payphone for another moment with his hand on the receiver. Then he walked back across the street and back up the stairs and back into the apartment and sat back down on the couch. Sarah didn't ask. She read it on his face. He didn't know. He didn't know. He's going in. He's going in today. Then we have done as much as we can do. The rest is Diane's. They sat on the couch together for a long time without talking. Outside, the city of Lakewood was waking up into a Saturday afternoon. The next 36 hours were the longest of Jack Morrison's life. They didn't leave the apartment. They ate canned soup and crackers and the apples Diane had left in a bowl on the counter. They watched the small television in the living room with the sound low. Sarah slept in fits. Her wounds were healing, but she had a low fever the second night, and Jack changed her bandages twice and made her drink water until she got mad about it. He slept on the couch. He woke at every creak. He kept the shotgun across his lap. They didn't talk about Diane. They didn't talk about Harris. They talked instead about small things. He told her about Lily, about how she'd taught herself to read at 4, about the way she lined up her stuffed animals in order of how much they needed her each night, about the time she'd cried for 3 days when a stray cat she'd been feeding got hit by a car. Sarah told him about her sister, the one she'd raised, who was a high school teacher in Ann Arbor now and didn't know any of this, and wasn't going to know any of this until it was over. "What's her name?" Jack asked. "Rachel. Rachel Mitchell." "Rachel Mitchell. Does she know what you do?" "She knows I'm a detective. She doesn't know I'm IA. She doesn't know about Harris." "What are you going to tell her when this is over?" Sarah was quiet. "I'm going to tell her I almost died, and that a man stopped on the side of the road, and that he had a 10-year-old daughter named Lily and a brother who got pulled out at the last minute, And I'm going to tell her that the world is mostly broken, but sometimes it isn't." Jack didn't say anything. He just nodded. Sunday night at 11 p.m. Eastern, Diane Castellanos hit publish. The story went up on her independent site as a 4,000-word investigative report titled, "The House Harris Built." How a Detroit police captain ran a criminal empire from inside the department. It included audio. It included photographs. It included the spreadsheet redacted in the public version, but unredacted in the version sent simultaneously to the FBI. By 11:30, 2 cable networks were running the story. By midnight, the New York Times had it. By 6 a.m. Monday, every news outlet in the country was running it. And the FBI had already executed a search warrant on Captain Raymond Harris's home in Grosse Pointe Farms. Harris was arrested in his pajamas. His wife was arrested 2 hours later. Eric Cole was arrested at a gas station in Toledo. Daniel Voss tried to run and was arrested at the Canadian border. Marcus Whitley turned himself in by Monday afternoon. 11 dirty cops were arrested that day. 12 more were arrested over the next 3 days. Sentinel Solutions had its license revoked. The car wash, the bail bondsman, the construction company all seized. The old man disappeared. He was never found. Jack didn't expect that he ever would be. Ryan Morrison walked into the FBI field office on Michigan Avenue at 1:15 on Saturday afternoon, 26 hours before the story broke. He told them everything. He gave them documents. He turned over 3 years of bank statements. The U.S. Attorney's Office gave him a deal full cooperation testimony at the trials, no prison time, 2 years of probation, and a permanent ban on private security work. Ryan took the deal. He cried when he signed it. He told Jack later that crying in front of a federal prosecutor had been the worst moment of his life, until he realized that the worst moment of his life had actually been the first day he'd taken Harris's money and not asked where it came from. On Monday afternoon, when the story was on every news network in the country, and the FBI had seized Harris's house and the federal marshals had picked up Sarah Mitchell from the Lakewood apartment to bring her into protective custody for her grand jury testimony, Jack Morrison drove a rental car back to Bowling Green, Ohio. He pulled into Karen Holloway's gravel driveway at 4:11 in the afternoon. Lily was sitting on the porch. She was wearing the same clothes she'd left in. Mr. Buttons was on her lap. She had been waiting on that porch, Karen told him later, for the last hour and a half because she had told Karen at lunch that her daddy was coming today and that she would know it when he came up the road. Karen had said she could wait inside where it was warm. Lily had said no. She had been right. Jack stopped the rental car. He got out. He left the door open. Lily came down the porch steps in a run. She didn't say anything. She just hit him at full speed, and he caught her, and he lifted her up, and he held her tight enough to bruise, and he buried his face in her hair, and he breathed her in like a man who had been holding his breath for 50 hours and had not known whether he was ever going to get to breathe again. "Daddy," she said into his neck. "Yeah, baby. You came back. I told you I would. I know you did, but you came back." Karen Holloway stood on the porch with her arms folded against the cold and tears running down her face. She didn't say anything. She just nodded at him once, slow the way an old woman nods when she has watched a thing turn out the way it was supposed to, and she is too tired to celebrate. Jack carried Lily up the porch steps with one arm and shook Karen's hand with the other, and he stayed for dinner because Karen would not let him do anything else, and at 7 that night, he and Lily got back in the rental car and drove home to Detroit. The story ran for weeks, then months. Captain Raymond Harris was convicted on 23 federal charges, including racketeering, 3 counts of conspiracy to commit murder, money laundering, and corruption. He was sentenced to 4 consecutive life terms in a federal penitentiary in Indiana. Eric Cole got 40 years, Daniel Voss got 50, Marcus Whitley got 25. The old man, whose real name turned out to be a man named Edgar Wallace Pruitt, age 58, former CWMI contractor, was indicted in absentia and remains a fugitive to this day. The FBI keeps a file on him. He has not surfaced. Sarah Mitchell testified at every trial. She was promoted to lieutenant. She turned it down. She said she didn't want to be a lieutenant. She wanted to keep being a detective. They let her. Ryan Morrison kept his deal. He did not go back into security. He took a job at his brother's auto shop fixing cars. He worked in the next bay over from Jack for the next 9 years and never once complained about the pay. On Saturdays, he came over to Jack's house and ate dinner and helped Lily with her homework. They never talked about the spreadsheet again. Jack Morrison went back to fixing transmissions. He went back to 14-hour days and busted carburetors and customers who wanted miracles for the price of a sandwich. He went back to bedtime stories and packed lunches and the slow, ordinary work of raising a daughter alone in a city that had not gotten any easier. He never spoke to Diane Castellanos again. She published one more piece of follow-up 6 months after the story broke, and in it, in the second paragraph, she wrote a single sentence that Jack read 3 times and then folded up and put in the drawer where he kept his father's pocket watch. The case would never have been made if a Detroit mechanic on a cold night in February had not done the one thing the rest of us in our cars with our places to be did not do. He stopped. Jack kept the article. He never showed it to anybody. On Lily's 11th birthday, 3 months after Harris went to prison, Sarah Mitchell came to the house. She brought a gift, a hardback copy of Charlotte's Web, the nice illustrated edition signed inside the front cover. To Lily Morrison, the bravest girl I have ever met. With love, Sarah. Lily threw her arms around Sarah's neck and held on for a very long time. After Lily went to bed, Sarah sat at Jack's kitchen table with a cup of coffee. The same kitchen table. She didn't say anything about the table. She didn't have to. They sat quietly for a while. Jack. Yeah. I have spent 8 months trying to figure out how to thank you. I can't. There aren't words, so I am going to stop trying. I am just going to be in your life if you'll have me, as a friend, forever. That is the only thanks I know how to give. Jack looked at her across the table. Detective Mitchell. Sarah. Sarah, you don't owe me anything. I stopped on a road. That's all I did. Anybody would have. No, Jack, they wouldn't have. That's the whole point. They didn't. You did. He didn't have an answer for that. She stayed in their lives. She came for Thanksgiving. She came for Christmas. She came to Lily's middle school graduation and her high school graduation, and the day she got accepted to the University of Michigan on a scholarship, and she sat in the 3rd row at the wedding. When Lily, 26 years old, and a pediatric nurse at Children's Hospital of Michigan, married a kind man named David, who'd been her college sweetheart. Jack walked her down the aisle in the same suit he'd bought for his father's funeral. He didn't cry until the reception. Sarah handed him a handkerchief. He used it. Jack Morrison lived to be 78 years old. He died in his sleep on a quiet Tuesday morning in October, in the same house he'd raised his daughter in. Lily was holding his hand. Sarah was in the next chair over. Ryan was downstairs putting on coffee. His last words 3 days before he went, when Lily had asked him if he was scared, were the only words a man like Jack Morrison knew how to say at the end of a life like his. No, baby. I just want to know I did it right. He had. He had stopped on a road on a cold night when every reasonable voice in his head had told him to drive past, and because he had stopped, a corrupt police captain went to prison. 3 families got justice for murdered men. 23 dirty officers were stripped of their badges, and a young detective lived to keep doing the work that had nearly killed her. He had stopped on a road. That was the whole story. That was enough.